This link is for 5th grade, going along with the story Who Says Robots Can't Think? If you go ahead and turn your hardcover Treasures textbook to page 358 and 359, you may follow along with me as I begin reading the story. Of course, before I begin reading, I'm going to go ahead and go over the vocabulary words that we're going to encounter in this unit. The first one is rotated. Rotated means turned around on an axis or a central point. The students rotated the globe to locate China. Robot. A robot is programmed to do the job that a person usually does. A robot can perform dangerous jobs. Reversed. Reversed means moved in the opposite direction. The deer reversed directions. Defective. Something that is defective has a flaw or weakness. Defective electrical wiring has or was the cause of the fire. Meteor. A meteor is a piece of rock from space. The meteor entered Earth's atmosphere at high speed and burned as it fell. Dangling. Something that is dangling is hanging or swinging loosely. Dangling your feet in a pool can cool you off. Staggered. Someone who staggered would be said to have swayed or walked unsteadily. Brianna staggered trying to carry the heavy box. Tokens. Tokens are pieces that mark your place on a game board. This game has some very interesting tokens. Okay, let's go ahead and direct our attention to the hardcover book. This week's vocabulary strategy that we're going to talk a little bit about is analogies. Okay? Now, analogies compare two pairs of words. Sometimes analogies use synonym words which have the similar meaning. For example, broken is to defective as tiny is to neat. We've all seen analogies, more than likely, on your TCAPS test. You've seen that where they use the colon and then the double colon. With that being said, let's go ahead and direct our attention to the story. The story is Who Says Robots Can't Think? It's by Jane Schnelling. Sorry about that. Dad and I are watching the Olympic Games in our media room. The giant screen drops down to cover one wall. I jiggle the lever and my seat turns around to face the screen. We give our robot, Sylvia, our orders for popcorn and fresh lemonade. She's only a machine, but she looks like a human and helps with the housework. We are having popcorn for dinner tonight because our oven is defective. It is broken and keeps repeating that it doesn't remember how to cook. Dad thinks the huge meteor passing by the Earth is messing with its radio waves. I did see a shooting star yesterday, I said. Maybe that's why I had trouble getting Sylvia started this morning. She rotated around and around, staggered when she tried to take a step, and almost fell backwards. She finally started moving towards me, but then suddenly reversed and went backwards. I thought she was going to crash into a wall. Luckily, she grabbed a hold of the wind chime we had dangling down from the ceiling, and she got her balance. At last, Sylvia arrived with our popcorn and drinks. I look at the screen and see the electric torch burning. Sylvia sees it too. Dad gives her tokens from an old board game as a tip. Sylvia thanks him for the pieces and starts to leave the room. Then she reverses directions and comes back to where we were sitting. I hear humming and then some clicking sounds. The sound means that she's searching her memory chips for information. During the Olympics, I should get medals, not tokens, she says. Dad and I just stare at each other. Sylvia doesn't seem to know that robots aren't supposed to think. Then we burst out laughing, and awkward Sylvia and award Sylvia a gold medal. Okay, with this being said, we are going to be, our comprehension strategy that we're working on is drawing conclusions. Drawing conclusions, of course, is in reference to making inferences, which is something you guys have been doing all year long with your science journals. So making inferences about what happens in a story will help you draw conclusions about characters and events and come to a new understanding of the story. We're going to use conclusion diagram when we reread the story, and we're going to make inferences and draw some conclusions. Okay? Now, to draw conclusions, readers use logical reasoning to consider various pieces of information in a text or a story. They use information from the selection and their own prior experiences to arrive at a new understanding about characters or the events in the text. Okay? Good readers are able to alter their conclusions as the author presents new information, or if they feel their conclusions do not make sense as they continue to read. So this conclusion diagram that we're going to be using is going to help us use facts and details or evidence to draw a conclusion. All right, with that being said, let's direct our attention back to Who Says Robots Can't Think. Dad and I are watching the Olympic Games in our media room. The giant screen drops down to cover one wall. I jiggle a lever and my seat turns around to face the screen. We give our robot Sylvia our orders for popcorn and fresh lemonade. She's only a machine, but she looks like a human and helps with the housework. We are having popcorn for dinner tonight because our oven is defective. It is broken and keeps on repeating that it doesn't remember how to cook. Dad thinks it's the huge meteor passing by Earth and it's messing up its radio waves. I'm going to stop right there. When I read a story, I put information in order to reach a new understanding about what's taken place. So far, in this story, one of the characters thinks that a huge meteor passing by Earth is messing with radio waves. He thinks this is why the oven's not working. Now another character thinks it also might be why their robot named Sylvia is acting funny. Okay? Now, let's stop right there for a second. I did see a shooting star yesterday, I said. Maybe that's why I have trouble getting Sylvia started this morning. She rotated around, staggering when she tried to take a step and almost fell backwards. She finally started moving towards me, but then suddenly reversed and went backwards. I thought she was going to crash into the wall. Luckily, she grabbed hold of the wind chimes we have dangling from the ceiling, and she got her balance. At last, Sylvia arrived with our popcorn and drinks. I look at the screen and see the Olympic torch burning brightly. Sylvia sees it too. Dad gives her tokens from an old board game as a tip. Sylvia thanks him for the pieces and starts to leave the room. Then she reverses directions and comes back to where we are sitting. I hear humming and then some clicking sounds. The sound means that she's searching her memory chip for information. During the Olympics, I should get medals, not tokens, she says. Okay, so now I'm going to stop right there. So they think that it's the meteor that's messing with the radio waves. Of course, the other character thinks that's maybe why Sylvia was acting funny. But at the end of the story, Sylvia receives tokens from Dad as a tip, but then turns around and says she should get medals because the family is watching the Olympics. Now, I can conclude that the meteor is probably also responsible for Sylvia's strange request at the end of the story. Okay? So, some of the details or the evidence that help us draw that conclusion that meteors interfere with radio waves, causing Sylvia to make strange requests for medals at the end of the story, is that we know that the meteor is passing by Earth, we know the oven doesn't work, and we know that the robot staggers and almost falls. So the evidence that we hear of here is that the meteor passing by Earth, we have an oven that doesn't work, and then we also have a robot staggers and almost falls. Okay? Now what we can do is we can go ahead and draw from that, the conclusion for that, we can draw that meteors interfere with radio waves, causing Sylvia to make a strange request for medals. Wow, at the end of the story. All right, so right now we're kind of focusing on drawing conclusions, okay? And remember, when we're drawing conclusions, we're using the evidence or the details from the story to do that. With that being said, tomorrow you're actually going to be working on page 104, and that page is going to actually make you work on drawing conclusions. So you're going to read a small passage and you're going to draw a conclusion from that. Now with that being said, if you have further questions or concerns about drawing conclusions, please do not hesitate to contact me.